It's about one quarter of our overall cost position is fuel, and if that doubles suddenly, you can imagine how much of an impact that also could have on the ticket prices.
Entre les compagnies du Golfe, les groupes européens et les transporteurs africains, où est-ce que Bruxelles Airlines peut gagner des parts de marché sur le continent?
I think right now we are in a good position because as the Strait of Hormuz is closed and there is this big spike in prices for kerosene, I think European carriers like us are in a fairly good position because we are hedged for the pricing. Due to the hedging that we still have for a large share of our fuel consumption the prices of before the crisis. And the fuel hedging goes over a two-year period and it goes down the longer the time goes. So that means we have some time to adapt. So we don't have that immediate price spike that you would have if you are a carrier that is not hedged. And of course also we don't have our hub in the region where it's now a bit a difficult situation. Fuel is a very important part of our cost. It's about one quarter of our overall cost position is fuel, and if that doubles suddenly, you can imagine how much of an impact that also could have on the ticket prices. And so I think we are in the nice position to gradually see what happens, also see whether the situation hopefully improves so that we can go down with the prices again. But I think every airline will need to have that extra cost somehow also be reflected in the ticket prices.
Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui vous envisagez de réduire votre activité sur le continent en fonction de cette guerre qui se déroule au Moyen-Orient?
We plan to fly the full summer flight plan as it was scheduled already a year ago. So we don't have any cancellations in that sense. For the upcoming winter, we will of course have to look because in winter the demand is always lower than in summer. And if then the much higher fuel costs are still there, that might have an impact. And then there's of course the question of, will there be at some point a fuel shortage somewhere? And then we would have to react to it. But so far, and knock on wood, our providers have always told us that there is still sufficient fuel for the upcoming months.
Est-ce qu'à l'inverse de la rareté de l'offre en Afrique centrale et en Afrique en Afrique de l'Est, est-ce que des zones comme l'Afrique de l'Ouest ne sont pas plus compétitives? Et aussi, pourquoi est-ce que vous ne mettez pas plus de capacité sur ces zones-là? Est-ce que c'est parce qu'il y a d'autres concurrents qui font plus de pression sur ces zones-là, comme Air France, Royal Air Maroc et Ethiopian, qui sont présents avec le Askai au Togo?
So what we actually try is to be a stable partner, a reliable partner. So we don't want to go in the market, go out again, move capacities up and down a lot. So we really think about which markets we should be going in, and then we try to keep the offer really stable. Even if in one year the market is not going so well, or if in another year it's going very well. So we try to do it kind of with a longer term view and not day by day. And actually in Africa, in many years, one country is not having such a high demand, but the year after it may have a much higher demand, and we just try to keep the offer quite stable. And I mean, we're still growing, we're getting more long-haul aircraft, and then we also look into, are we putting more frequencies on the same routes, or are we adding new routes? That is always, of course, a big question. But we really try to be there for long term as a reliable partner and not move up and down all the time.
Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui on peut gagner de nouvelles parts de marché en Afrique sans déclencher une guerre des prix avec ses concurrents?
Yeah, the good thing really is that the demand is strong in general and that there's a growth in the market. So that means several companies can grow at the same time, and that will still work out without having a huge price war. Price war, I think, is nothing that is happening right now because, again, of the high fuel prices. So airlines need to make sure that they recuperate some of the extra cost they have, and that is why price wars are not very much happening right now.
Quelles sont vos priorités pour le continent dans les 5 prochaines années? Est-ce que vous vous lancez dans une consolidation de vos positions actuelles ou alors vous allez à la conquête de nouveaux marchés?
Yeah, so we are getting more long-haul capacity next year. and we're still in the discussion where we would use it. I think it's more likely to go on new routes, but it's too early yet to say which ones that would be. But I personally would also be very happy to have more markets to come. It's always a great chance to be able to grow. When we got the last aircraft, we were actually adding capacity on the markets we already have. That is also helpful if you can offer more frequencies for the customers, if we can offer more direct flights rather than triangular flights. I think that's always also good for the customers.
Vous êtes présent dans près d'une vingtaine de destinations en Afrique. Est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, les différentes situations en fonction des régions, que ce soit des conflits diplomatiques, des conflits armés ou de l'insécurité, ça ne rend pas aussi vos opérations compliquées sur le continent?
So I think operating in Africa is different than operating on some of the other continents, no doubt. But I think that's why it helps so much to have a long-standing experience. So we've seen it. We know that after something doesn't go so well, it usually goes well afterwards. So I think we have the experience, and we like to be a reliable partner and not step up, step down just because of something happening shortly. So our ambition is really to be a reliable partner that is always there. And I think the most impressive example of Brussels Airlines, I think, is staying in the Ebola markets at the time and continuing to fly, for example, to Sierra Leone, which I don't think any other carrier really did that was flying into Africa.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.